All right, we are recording. My name is Ryan Hoger, and I am here with Greg Jutras. We're going to go through all these thermostats, and we're going to kind of flip back and forth between the two of us, so we got a little bit of expertise on different sides of the fence over here. If you have questions as we go, please do type them in the chat box, and we will try to address them. We'll check the questions every 10 or 15 minutes, and then, of course, again at the end, we'll go and hit any questions we didn't hit. So just to start off here, why would someone want an internet thermostat? I used to spend a lot of time talking about this when we did internet stat presentations. At this point, I'm assuming all of you have 50 different things connected in your house, so you get it. You understand why people want their stuff on the web, and there's no reason they wouldn't want their thermostat on the web as well. If I can unlock my car doors with my cell phone, from across the world, why would I not want to change the set point of my thermostat when I'm out of town as well? So in the commercial world, it's a good alternative compared to a full building automation system. If you only got a couple rooftops, it does save you quite a bit of money versus a full BAS like a hospital or something would have. Residentially, it's just gadget people. People want stuff that they can play with from their phone, from their web browser, etc. It used to be that all these thermostats, required an Ethernet cable when we first started doing internet stats. Pretty much all of them now are Wi-Fi or some kind of hybrid of Wi-Fi and proprietary. So we'll talk about that as we go through them, but you do not need to hardwire to all these things like you used to have to do. And you no longer have to have certain browser or certain software installed on your computer. You can use a standard web browser or phone app to access any of these thermostats we're going to talk about today. Additionally, none of these thermostats require access fees in order to get web access. That was something that was happening in the mid-2000s. You might get charged to access your thermostat on a monthly basis. That's pretty much dead. Nothing like that exists anymore. The interfaces from the internet are pretty much free for every stat we're going to talk about today. And all of these stats, of course, can send you text message and email alerts and things like that. We're also not going to really spend any time talking about basic features of stats. All these stats are going to be programmable. They're all going to have high-end features. They're all going to be multi-stage heating and cooling equipment. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on basic programmable stats. We're going to really try to focus most of our attention on the web-related type topics. So it used to be when you got an internet thermostat, and by the way, we started doing internet thermostats back in 2005 here at TEC, and this screenshot here is one of those first stats that we hooked up. We were doing web-based systems in general all the way back to 2000. It just didn't come in a thermostat mode until 2005. We took on this line, which was Prolifics, which we took at the time because, well, quite honestly, they were the only ones really playing in the HVAC market. So we wanted to be kind of first on board with internet stats. We don't carry them anymore just because we have so many choices from so many of our quote-unquote regular thermostat partners that we don't really have a need for the Prolific stat, and it is kind of pricey. But this is the kind of data that you would see. What are my current temperatures? What are my set points? How many stages of heating and cooling am I running? Do I have any alarms? If I did have an alarm, it would email me. I could see all my scheduling. I realize, this looks like a ton of data on here, and it is. But on a regular programmable thermostat, you have all the same data. You're just doing it one screen at a time. Morning, 7 a.m., next screen. 72 degrees, next screen. 75 degrees, next screen. 48 screens later, you might be halfway through your week. It's kind of nice to see everything all at one time and be able to change the stuff you want. And all these web-based products allow you to do that. It gives you access to a much bigger screen, whether it's your laptop or your iPad or your phone or whatever it is. So speaking of phones, that's what people want. The people don't really want to access their thermostat for a web browser. I guess if you're at work and you want to log into your stat, fine. But generally speaking, people live on their phones. All of you know that. You go to your kids' sporting events, people are on the phone doing who knows what. Probably playing with their thermostat is my guess. But everybody wants to do everything from their phone. 60% or more now even of web traffic is done through a cell phone, not through a web browser. So all these thermostats have apps for them. Everything we're going to talk about today has some sort of app with varying degrees of complexity and or features. So we're going to kind of go through some of these thermostat lines, kind of one at a time and highlight different things. Just for you guys that are logging in, we're going to go through some of these Bryant & Carrier and communicating stats. We're going to go through the Ventstar web stats. We're going to go through the Honeywell stats. Then we're going to go through the other Honeywell line. Then we're going to go through the other Honeywell line because they have just a ridiculous amount of choices for different scenarios. So we'll go through all of that and hopefully try to make sense of it. We'll tell you about some new products that are coming out to the market pretty soon. And then if we have time, which we probably won't, we have a couple other things we can surprise you with. So in terms of Bryant and Carrier, I'm going to talk about them together. I think most people on this webinar realize that Bryant is part of Carrier, so they make a lot of stuff that both of them have. Their main internet thermostat is really not even a thermostat. It's a communicating control. So what that means for starters is that it doesn't have your normal thermostat wiring, you know, G, Y, W, etc. Instead, it has a communication signal that goes from the stat to the furnace, and data is passed that way, and the furnace is really making the decisions on what to do. So because of that, you can't hook this stat up to just any piece of equipment. The Bryant stats have to be hooked up to an Evolution furnace or an Evolution fan coil. The Carrier ones have to be hooked up to an Infinity furnace or Infinity fan coil, which are the higher tier units that have intelligent communication built into them. And they've had that communication since, I don't even know, like 2004 or something like that. In some cases, those pieces of equipment actually require you to use this communicating stat. So if you got a variable speed inverter piece of equipment, which is basically a 61 stage compressor, it goes from 40 to 100% in 1% increments, or a modulating gas valve furnace, which is basically the same thing, a 61 stage gas furnace, you really have to use these stats. You don't really have another choice on that, because we don't want to know that you have a request for heating or cooling. We want to know specifically how much heating and cooling the thermostat wants. So we need to know the set point and the actual temperature and calculate the delta along with a few other mathematical things to decide how much heating and cooling to put on. So these stats are really geared for that. If you have a communicating piece of equipment, especially modulating gas or modulating compressors, you really want to use these stats. It does the humidification and dehumidification sequences like you would expect of a high-end stat. It has smart recovery, which, by the way, pretty much all the stats we're going to talk about today have that. They all call it something different. Smart recovery, intelligent recovery, adaptive start, optimal start. Basically, it means if I tell your stat to go occupied at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's going to start tweaking set points at 7-something to get us there to the exact number at 8 o'clock. It'll calculate how early it needs to start in order to do that based on previous days' worth of run history. In addition to smart recovery, it has something called smart setback, which basically means that even though you might have told your furnace to maintain 72 degrees during the occupied mode and 65 during unoccupied, you may come home early from work one day and see that your furnace is running and it's 67 or 68 in there. And you're thinking, what the heck? I told it not to turn on until 65. It's calculating if it's smarter for it to run at low fire for a little bit of time throughout the day versus wait until it's almost time for you to come home and then go to high fire. So it's calculating that to save you the most energy, because at this point we're fighting for, you know, a few therms here and there or a few dollars here and there worth of energy. So it'll calculate that stuff and try to optimize it. It also works really good on heat pumps in terms of trying to keep the electric heater off and do all the work with the heat pump. You also get tons of data because it is a communicating system. The thermostat from the furnace or fan coil is getting data on the actual static pressure. Because of that, it can calculate when the filter is truly dirty versus when we just think it might be dirty based on time. We're actually sensing the pressure differential and telling you when it's dirty. You get the CFM data. In some models of this stat, you get the energy consumption data that's being used. And depending on what outdoor unit you're connected to, some of those have built-in refrigerant gauges, and you're able to read all the refrigerant pressures and things like that and temperatures from the actual thermostat itself. So it does some pretty cool stuff there. The nice thing about it is you would think a lot of that stuff would require billions of wires to control 61 stages of heat and all this other stuff. But it doesn't. It's always a 4-wire deal. A and B are communication, C and D are power. That's pretty much it. So it's always a 4-wire setup. Additionally, the furnace actually interrogates the piece of equipment to decide what it is. So when you start this system up, it asks the furnace, hey, what are you? How many stages do you have? What's your BTU capacity? Do you have an outdoor unit connected to you? Well, how big is he? What's his size? What's his model number? It goes and gets all that information from them so it can make intelligent configuration choices. So you're not setting up dip switch airflows and all that other stuff like you always did. The thermostat just does that all for you at the point of startup. Let me just clear this weird error thing. All right. If you guys have questions, type them in the chat box there, and we'll try to address them. You can do non-zoning systems with these stats. It'll control your humidifier, your furnace, your AC, your Bryant and Carrier ERV, your air purification, your UV lights, all that kind of stuff. And you can do fully zoned systems with dampers and all of that kind of thing. The cool thing about this zone damper system is there's no bypass involved, because since we know the static pressure and we are directly controlling the speed of the fan, we don't need to have a bypass when the damper starts shutting down. We just change the blower speed. So it works out pretty cool in that regard. The next line of thermostat we want to talk to you guys about is the Ventstar Color Touchstat. This stat has been out, I don't know, like 4 years maybe or so? Yeah, probably about 4 years. And initially it was not web accessible, but it had become so, maybe 3 years ago. It comes in residential and commercial flavors, and we'll talk about some of the differences there. And it comes with humidification and without. So the T5800 is the regular residential. If you want to go to humidification, it's 5900. The commercial are 68 and 6900 are the model numbers for regular, and then for humidity sensor built in. So some of the cool things about these, this is the residential stat. And as you can already notice just on these first two screens I showed you, this is basically a digital picture frame. It's a digital picture frame that happens to do a really good job of controlling your HVAC. So you can put your own wallpaper backgrounds on there. You can put screensavers on there. You can have it rotate through, I think, 100 of your favorite pictures of your dog and your grandkids and whatever else you want. The residential stat itself, from an HVAC perspective, can do 4 stages of heat, 2 stages of cooling. That's if you have a heat pump. If you got a gas system, it's 3 heat, 2 cool. It does do the dual fuel changeover, so you can put an outside air sensor on it and have it switch between your gas and your electric system. You can turn off the programmability. If someone doesn't want to program their stat, you can turn it off just like you can on a lot of these stats. Same with auto changeover. So there are some pretty cool things like that. There's a lot of test screens and maintenance screens that we'll show you in a little bit. Like I said, you can read the outdoor air temperature, and you can control your humidifier with this, or you can do dehumidification control with this type of stat. Here's a couple quick samples of some of the screens that you'll see. So on the top left there, when the installer's setting it up, it's literally asking you how many stages of cooling, how many stages of heating, and it's doing that for all the different settings. It's going through and asking you, what do you got of this, what do you got of that, what do you got of this, and it's just interrogating the installer, and you're answering basically simple, plain English questions from a little browser on the thermostat, and that's setting up the stat for you. There's also a pretty cool checkout mode. Over on the top right-hand side over here, the checkout mode is allowing you to initiate whatever stage of heating or cooling you want to test it out without having to go through the normal settings and all the normal delays and all that kind of stuff. The bottom left screen is showing you an example of the schedule, so you can see a lot of stuff at one time. As soon as you go to stats that have LCD screens, you're no longer stuck looking at one piece of data at a time. You can look at a lot of stuff simultaneously and then just key in on the thing that you want. And it is tracking the runtime of your heating and cooling equipment, so you can kind of predict whether you're using more or less energy and things like that. The commercial versions of the stat are very similar from a functionality standpoint, same kind of thing, 4 heat, 2 cool, or 3 heat, 2 cool for a gas system. It also has 365-day holiday programming, so if you're doing a commercial building with the stat and they have whatever 10 holidays a year, at the beginning of the year you can punch all the holidays in, and then you're automatically saving energy during those time frames. It can support a remote temperature sensor, so if you want to put the stat in in a restaurant in the manager's office and have a little tiny sensor out on the wall that nobody can touch out in the space in the dining room, you can do that kind of thing. There's also the ability to lock the screen out, so if you do want to put it in the occupied space, people can touch the screen all they want and it's not going to do anything. You can lock them out that way. Or if you want to give them a little bit of control, like in an office building, you could limit the set points so somebody can't jack the cooling down to 58 degrees or something like that. So what some of those screens look like, so you can enter a passcode that locks people out of the stat, and then only the person who has the passcode can get into the stat. You can limit the set points. In this case, we limited them to 65 on the low side for cooling, 80 on the high side for heating. You can make those as tight or as loose as you want them to be. There's an example of what you can do from the holiday schedule. You can just basically pull up a calendar type app, click on the dates you want to be on the holiday mode. Like in this case, it was, I don't know, Election Day and Thanksgiving or something like that. It must be a bank. But you can go ahead and have those stats automatically go to setback during the holidays. You can also pop up ads on these commercially. If you are doing a little restaurant and this thing's going to be in the occupied space, you can have it popping up stuff all the time in terms of like a rotating screensaver, but of your products, if you'd like to do that. Both the res and commercial stats, they all support the dealer contact info. You can load your logo in there and your contact info, website, phone number, email. If an error message pops up, your contact info will pop up on the screen. They'll also be able to see it when they log in online, that kind of thing. This stat's nice because it has multiple languages. So here in the Chicago area, obviously English isn't the only language some of the homeowners have. Spanish is pretty popular. We're still waiting for a Polish thermostat. That'd be awesome in Chicago, but we don't have that. Instead, we get French, which is useless. But English and Spanish. And then, like I said, there's screensavers and wallpapers that you can load on here. And it really is a fun stat for a homeowner to use. And it can be a functional stat for a business owner, especially if they want to put stuff up. Like if the stat's going to be in their lobby and they want to put a picture of a project they did or something on the screen or whatever, you can do that kind of thing. That's what it looks like when your logo and stuff pops up for an error message or something like that. One of the other cool things about this stat is it's not normally a Wi-Fi stat. It's a regular touchscreen stat, so it's reasonably inexpensive. And you can plug the Wi-Fi card in as a separate item. So you can put these stats in all your projects, and then if someone wants to add Wi-Fi later, it's a pretty easy upgrade. You basically just slide this little card in the side of the stat. It looks a little weird hanging out the side there, but it's not really objectionable or anything like that. And if you're worried about people stealing it, there is a little lock you can put in the back of it so people can't pull it out, in a commercial setting or something like that. So it's nice. You can upgrade the stat whenever you feel like it and use this regular touchscreen stat as your base stat on all your projects. Here's just some screenshots of what you might see when you pull this up on an app. This is the iPhone app, but the Android app looks basically like the same thing. It's all pretty simple and intuitive. You can have multiple systems on there, multiple thermostats. You click on the one you want. Anything you can do from the thermostat, you can do from the app. Pretty much navigating the app is the same way you navigate the thermostat. So if you know how to use your thermostat, you'll know how to use the app. You're not learning something twice. The web interface looks like this. There's all kinds of charts and things like that track your actual usage, and then you could also log into each individual stat and make changes as you see fit. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the Honeywell systems. Honeywell has well, 2 and now really kind of sort of 3 different lines of internet thermostat that they've released over time. So we're going to start off by talking about Redlink versus Wi-Fi, and I'm actually going to turn it over to Greg Jutras, who's going to go through all the Honeywell stuff. I'm going to let him drive for a while. While we're doing that, I'm going to look and see if we have any questions. And it looks like we do have a couple, so I'll start looking up some of the answers while Greg's taking off here.
Hi, this is Greg. Like Ryan said, we're going to talk about the Honeywell connected thermostats. And one of the biggest questions I get is, should I use Redlink or Wi-Fi? And, well, the answer is yes. But you got to figure out why you want to use one or the other. And that's what I'm going to try to explain today with some of the different options. Wi-Fi is a great technology mainly because people are aware of it. They already have it in their house. They've heard that term before, so it makes a lot of sense. The penalty is you have to have Wi-Fi in the house or in the business to make a Wi-Fi thermostat compatible. So that's kind of the reason you would use it or the reason you wouldn't use it. The nice thing, whether you're going Wi-Fi or Redlink, is that they both accomplish the same goal. At the end of the day, the homeowner can have control over their HVAC system remotely, either from a phone or a laptop, whatever makes sense. So Wi-Fi, people have heard of it, and it is really a cost-effective technology. So price-wise, it's going to generally be less expensive than going to a Redlink product. So the Redlink product is nice because it becomes wireless. You don't always have to run wires to this thing. Any Wi-Fi thermostat we're talking about today is going to be 5 wires, which sometimes it's not a problem, and other times it is a bit of a problem. So Redlink can be wireless, and that makes sense. It also gives the contractor the ability to control a lot of, I'll call it IAQ type equipment. So it solves problems by being wireless, and then you can add accessories that will integrate with the thermostat. Now, the penalty of going with Redlink is that you have to buy a router. So you have to buy what is called the Redlink Interface Gateway. So it's an additional piece, but we're not relying on a Wi-Fi signal from the space. So at the end of the day, they both accomplish the same goals. We're getting connected remotely. Wi-Fi, we need a router. With Redlink, we're buying a Redlink router. So I'm going to start with the Wi-Fi thermostat line. And this is a standard 6000 series thermostat from Honeywell. Most contractors are going to be familiar with this thermostat. There's millions of them sold. The only thing that changes here is that now it's able to be connected to a Wi-Fi router. So you hook it up as a standard 5-wire thermostat. It's going to talk to the Wi-Fi router, and the homeowner or business owner would be able to get control of this thermostat via a smartphone or a tablet or a laptop, whatever it is. And this thermostat will handle most basic applications. You know, we're looking at 3 heat, 2 cool. This is definitely the push-button, low-end Wi-Fi thermostat. So not a whole lot of bells and whistles here, but what it does, it allows the average homeowner to get an inexpensive thermostat and be able to connect wirelessly to it. So that's really where it fits in. So it's kind of the good in the good, better, best scenario. As we go into more Wi-Fi products, the next step up is going to be the Vision Pro. So if we're talking about the Focus Pro, which is push buttons, now we're talking about Vision Pro, which is a touch screen thermostat. And again, remember, you need 5 wires on the Wi-Fi thermostats. This is going to, yeah, or you can use an add-a-wire, which we'll get to. Lost my train of thought, sorry. So when we're talking about the Vision Pro thermostat, it has the green screen, it's touch screen, but now what we're getting is, you know, a true 7-day, we can do auto changeover, we're getting built-in reminders, we're getting a little bit more out of the thermostat than the standard Focus Pro. But really what it boils down to is you went from a small push-button thermostat to a large touch-screen thermostat. That's really the biggest difference in the thermostats. Now, if we're looking at what I would call the best out of the good, better, best Wi-Fi scenario for Honeywell, this is, I'm going to call it the Prestige because that's what I like to call it, but it's really the 9000, which is the exact same thermostat, except for its Wi-Fi. This is going to do a lot of the same things that the Vision Pro was able to do, but now we're looking at a high-definition screen. It is also a touch screen, but instead of the, I'm going to call it 1990s green screen, we went to a high-definition screen. We get things like, you know, different languages. You get your standard heat and cool, you know, 3 heat, 2 cool, whatever you need. And you can start adding a few more sensors like humidity. But really the biggest reason to go to this one is because it looks nicer and it's going to work, I say look nicer for a higher end home or a higher end business. Now, one of their newest thermostats is on that same platform in what I'm calling the Prestige Wi-Fi. Now they've added a voice control option to that thermostat. Call it an option because it's the same thermostat, 2 different part numbers. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one because it's kind of niche-y. You know, I hate saying that. But this thermostat is Wi-Fi capable. It does all the same features as the Wi-Fi Prestige. It looks nice. Plus, you can talk to it. So you can say, turn it up to 72, turn the heat up to 72, and it's going to do that automatically. Or you can do it from your smartphone. It's really gadgety or for people who need this kind of thermostat. It's not what I would call an everyday thermostat. It's really for where people need it. Now, just being released, I'll call it this week because we still haven't received product, is the new Lyric thermostat. This is still a Wi-Fi enabled thermostat, and this is what a lot of people consider Honeywell's answer to the Nest. And I'm going to say it's the answer to the Nest mainly because it's round. That's pretty much where the similarities, end. The Nest is working off very different technology than the Lyric. So what the Lyric is going after is really people who do not program their thermostats for whatever reason. They're maybe a stay-at-home person, and they leave sporadically, so they're not going to mess with setting back the thermostat. They don't have a schedule that makes sense to program a thermostat. Those kind of people are what the Lyric is perfect for. So busy people in general who come and go different times of the day, this thermostat is great for them. And it still gives you the ability to get and change all your information via a phone or tablet. So here's a picture of the app where you can change it via a phone. And as you can see here, it's looking for people whose schedules don't fit an actual schedule, where it's almost impossible to, or very difficult to get somebody on a schedule. And so what ends up happening? Most people are going to have their thermostat on a hold. Why? Because it's the easiest thing to do. They want to be comfortable when they're home. They don't want to mess with it. So what makes the Lyric different? Well, they're talking about 4 features, but it really comes down to one. This new concept called Geo Fencing. So what Geo Fencing is that this thermostat will link up with the homeowner's cell phones. And when those cell phones leave, and there's different settings, but I think the average is about 500 meters. So you leave, you go down the block, and it knows to go into setback. So you're not programming this thermostat. It knows when you leave and automatically goes into a setback status. Now, some people say, well, what happens if, I'm leaving but grandma's coming over to watch the kids? Well, that's where they got these shortcuts. You can quickly put it into a comfort mode to where it knows that grandma's there and it's not going to go into a setback until that cell phone comes back in range and then leaves again. So that's what this whole technology is built upon, is geofencing, to where it knows when that cell phone leaves and it either goes into a setback mode or into a comfort mode. So you don't have to set it. So the idea is, instead of trying to, produce an algorithm that says, hey, you're usually home at 5 o'clock on a Monday, this actually follows your schedule based on when you're there and automatically changes the thermostat for you. There's a few other little features with this, what they call fine-tuning. So because we're getting weather data, or we're looking at outdoor temperature sensors, we can say, hey, it's hot and humid, so we may have to run that AC a little more often to get to your set point, or to feel comfortable at your set point. The same token, if you've got lower humidity levels, it's going to say, hey, I don't have to run as much because we feel comfortable. So it takes that into account, and it's a nice little feature for the homeowner, where they're comfortable when they need it, but we can also save energy by looking at that information. So Honeywell really has 3 different platforms for consumers that want to be connected. There's the Redlink, which we're still going to talk about, but where that fits in is anytime you're looking to do something wirelessly, zoning applications come to mind, or you're trying to tie in IAQ equipment. Wi-Fi, I like it because it's a low-cost option to get into the connected world. It's great for people who travel or have vacation homes, and people know the Wi-Fi technology. They're comfortable with it. Then the third platform is the Lyric, and we're really targeting this towards people who are in and out of their home many times. People who have a lot of errands to run or don't have a normal schedule. So it will know when people leave, and it takes that into account. They're also targeting people who are into technology. They like, people who like the newest, greatest thing, and that's kind of where the three different platforms of connected thermostats lie within Honeywell. So if I bottom line that, really there's not a person out there who couldn't use one of the three, or if they're looking for something special, Honeywell's going to have it because they have just so many options. So here's a few questions if you're debating on which way to go. I'm not going to go through all of these, but if the temperatures vary, from first floor to second floor, you might be thinking Redlink because you're going to need that wireless technology to make that job easier. If you're trying to tie in with IAQ equipment, Redlink's probably a good option. If you travel frequently, Wi-Fi is a good option for that. And then if your schedule's crazy and it's never the same, Lyric's a pretty good option for that kind of consumer. And then last but not least, for the Wi-Fi, because the Wi-Fi thermostats are all 5 wires, Honeywell does offer the wire saver. And this guy will take 5 wires, as you see, that land on the gas furnace connections, and turns them into 4 wires. So this is a really good option to use when you only have 4 wires coming to that thermostat and they want to go to a Wi-Fi enabled thermostat. The other note on this is we try to only use this wire saver on Honeywell products. And Ryan, do you want to speak to that real quick?
Yeah, this particular one you have to use on Honeywell products because the stat has to have a K terminal on it, as you can see on the left-hand side over there. We have another one from Ventstar, which we'll talk about later if there's enough time, that we can use on any thermostat that we want. That's a typical Y, G, and so forth. So with this wire saver for Honeywell, you have to have a K terminal like you see over on the left side. Basically, the K terminal is a digital signal that kind of represents both your both your cooling and your fan signal. So if you look over on the right-hand side, the wire saver still got your common wire, still got your R wire, still has your W heat wire, and then you have this K. The K gets divided out into Y and G later on. So instead of having the 5 wires go to the stat, you got 4 wires talking to this little tiny board that goes next to your furnace or in your furnace cabinet, and that guy splits the K wire into Y and G, which is cooling and fan. The Ventstar one works the same way, does it a little bit differently, and if we got time at the end, we'll talk about it because you can use that on any stat. The Honeywell one has to be used on a K stat. So the Wi-Fi ones have it, and the Lyric has this as well.
Got it. Thanks, Ryan. All right, so now I am switching gears on you. Previously, I was talking about Wi-Fi pretty much exclusively. Now we're going to go into the Redlink technology. And one of the best features of the Redlink option is that you have all these different accessories that can tie to this thing wirelessly. You also get the same comfort portal and apps with the Redlink as you would with the Wi-Fi. The only difference is you're buying a Redlink Internet gateway, which is that first black box on the left, and then that's what's going to connect you to the Internet versus the Wi-Fi from the homeowner or building owner.
And if I could add to that, Comfort Gateway, like Greg said, is for Redlink and Wi-Fi. The exception to that is Lyric. Lyric does not use the same apps and portals. For Lyric, it's totally different because it needs the Geo Fencing stuff. So there's a separate app for that. That's the only exception, really.
Correct. It looks pretty much the same. Okay, so the router. I get a lot of questions on what's involved with it, but it's really not that complicated. You get power to it, which you just plug in, 115 volts. It comes with an Ethernet cable, which you're going to go from the gateway to the internet router that's already there. You're going to connect the buttons so that they start communicating from the gateway to the thermostats. And then at that point, you're going to give the homeowner the serial number and the instructions to do what they got to do. And basically what they're going to do is go to the website. They're going to register, and then they're going to set up the account and set up the alerts that they want, and then they can, at that point, download the app so that they can get the same, I'd say, same ability from a smartphone as they would have from the laptop. Here's a picture of the app and some of the different options that you have. You can change your set point. You can look at the system, fan, some of the different things. One point, you can only have 4 thermostats to one gateway. You can have multiple gateways, but you're only putting 4 thermostats on one gateway. But the nice thing is you can see many more thermostats than that from the dashboard. So you can have 4 gateways with 16 thermostats. You're going to be able to see them all from the same dashboard. So this is showing you multiple locations. So this is showing you what you can do basically from your cell phone. You can, of course, change your HVAC settings. You can change the temperature. You can view indoor humidity, and you can view outdoor temperature and humidity. You can't change outdoor humidity and temperature, if anybody's wondering.
What?
Yeah.
Come on.
And then you can do multiple thermostats. You can just go from thermostat to thermostat if it's zoned, or you can go to different locations, however it works out.
Greg, can I ask a question?
Please.
If somebody's got Redlink at their house in Chicago and they got a Wi-Fi stat at their house in their condo in Florida, is it still one app and it looks the same and smells the same when they navigate and everything?
I think it's the same.
Yep.
Except for Lyric.
Yep, except for Lyric. Yes, you're logging in, it's all the same. It doesn't matter. You can mix and match them if you're lucky enough to have multiple properties.
You can remote schedule. So this is similar, going back to the prolifics conversation, where you're seeing a ton of information, but you can do all this from your cell phone if all of a sudden your schedule does change. The Redlink are backwards and forwards compatible, so any Redlink thermostat out there is going to be able to connect to a Redlink technology with the gateway and get internet access. I forget how many people that these dots represent, but as you can see, there's literally hundreds and thousands of people that already have this technology. And what I wanted to point out is that, this year is the first time people are spending more time on mobile devices than they are watching TV. So there's a lot of people who are using this type of technology. Go ahead.
One of the questions that came in from David was, how does Redlink compare to Zigbee or Z-Wave? It's a similar kind of thing, David. All 3 of those, Redlink, Zigbee, and Z-Wave, are individual local wireless protocols, so devices that are in the same building, if you will, all are able to talk to each other, but none of those are directly getting you on the internet. At some point, it's going to boil down to one of those devices having a Wi-Fi or Ethernet cable to get you on the internet. So with all three of those, you have to have all the products have to speak that same language. They can all be talking to each other wirelessly. In terms of comparison, Zigbee seems to be reasonably popular with accessories, commercially speaking, on niche products. Redlink is a Honeywell thing, although they use it in their thermostats and in some of their security products. But you can't mix and match any of those things. Redlink can't be mixed with Zigbee and vice versa. But they're all local area protocols to get things talking to each other. And then at some point, those things have to connect to something else to get on the internet. Like in the case of Redlink, we got that little black router that gets all the Redlink in the entire building onto the internet. So hopefully that helps with that. I'll give it back to Greg here.
Thanks, Ryan. So some of the options that connect to the Redlink thermostats. This is just a wireless outdoor temperature sensor, but think about the advantage of being wireless. All you do is screw this into the deck or somewhere, siding, and it's going to automatically connect with that thermostat and give the homeowner real-time outdoor temperature and humidity at their space. Indoor air sensors. This is by far one of the exciting, might be a little too much, but we're able to wirelessly connect up to 6 indoor sensors per thermostat, and this has been great for averaging or moving a thermostat or taking temperature readings from a spot that was hard to get to with wires. So it's been a great lifesaver for me, just dealing with some of the jobs when we can remotely put this thing anywhere we want. So it's been a great little option for the Redlink thermostats. Portable comfort control. At one time, this was actually really cool because you were able to, sit on the couch, change your thermostat from the remote. It looks kind of cool. You're able to change a bunch of thermostats. You can go upstairs, downstairs, dining room from the one remote. It was pretty cool. We've used it as what I'll call, poor man zoning. You put this in the one bedroom where grandma's staying over, or you want to make sure that kid is comfortable, so it can take readings from there and not the thermostat. So it really, helped in certain situations. But what I think is happening is because we're going more to the apps and people using their phone, it's really not, it doesn't have the sizzle it used to have. Take it for what it's worth. It's still pretty cool. You can use it for a lot of thermostats and to fix some problems, but I find most people are just going to their phone because it's in their pocket, wherever they're at. The exit and entry remote. So this is a little device, you can put it kind of by the garage door or wherever you leave, and really quickly, easily, with one button, put it into a setback mode. When you get home, you hit the home button. It's pretty simple. They've also got a filter/vent boost. So this, we've used it mainly with ERVs, HRVs, where you can put this, in a bathroom and just touch a button and it's going to run for 20 minutes or an hour, whatever button you push, and it's going to automatically boost it. Some people use it on the for the fan, to get 60 minutes of air cleaning or that kind of thing. So different options with that filter/vent boost control. And again, it's wireless, so you can put this thing wherever you need to. So now we're getting into thermostats that are Redlink. The new one is the Vision Pro 8000. And I like this thermostat because I like to call it the one thermostat that will do whatever you need it to do. So it's very universal. It installs a lot of different ways. It's residential, it's commercial. Depending on which one you go with, it's going to do all the stages of heat you need, all the stages of cooling, and you can add in all those Redlink accessories. So it's really great all-around thermostat. I like this slide because it shows all the different options this one thermostat has on how to wire it. So you can wire this thing like a normal thermostat and not use the Redlink technology at all. And the beauty of that is this thermostat costs about the same as the standard Vision Pro thermostat without Redlink. So maybe you're going to wire it, but you want to use some accessories. You can do that. You can use this thermostat wirelessly. So you've got an equipment interface module that goes down by the mechanical room, and then it's going to talk to the thermostat, or you can use this with zoning and be wireless as well. So a lot of different options on how you want to wire this, but I like it because it's one thermostat that does pretty much everything you need it to be. Residential, commercial, it'll do economizer. We have setbacks. It has the different languages for residential, commercial. And the nice thing commercially, it has some lockouts where you can put in a code if you choose to. And again, I keep going back to the accessories, but that's one of the best reasons to use these thermostats is because not only the reliability of the Redlink connection, but you've got a lot of other things you can use to solve problems and keep the person comfortable. So the Vision Pro Redlink thermostat comes in 3 different flavors. The one at the top is a 3 heat, 2 cool with humidification or dehumidification. The one in the middle is the same thermostat without the humidification. So it's 3 heat, 2 cool. And then the bottom one is a Vision Pro that's 1 heat, 1 cool. So 3 different flavors for that thermostat. I think I talked about accessories enough.
Yep, works for everything.
Right. So what I wanted to point out is the current standard Honeywell Vision Pro thermostat, and then the new Redlink Redlink Vision Pro thermostat. So the one on the left is what I'm going to call the old green screen standard technology. You wire it. The one on the right is the Redlink. It's a sleeker design with the blue background, and then it can be wireless, or you can wire it, and you can connect it to all the accessories, plus control it from computer or a smartphone. And it costs literally about the same. So why would you buy one of the standard ones that can't do any of that? So the next evolution of Redlink thermostats is the Prestige. And the Prestige is a very sleek thermostat with a lot of different color options. So you can have white on white, white on gray, silver, black. So it comes in different colors to match the decor. And when you're comparing this to the older Prestige, it's quite a bit smaller, but the screen is the same size, if not larger. So smaller thermostat with a larger screen, very similar to what's happening with the smartphones. It looks much nicer. This is just a quick snapshot of all the different ways you can buy this kind of thermostat. So you can buy the thermostat itself. You can buy it with a interface with some air temperature sensors. Those are going to be in the ductwork. You can add in a outdoor temperature sensor, and then the last kit there at the bottom, you can see where they used to come with that portable comfort control. They've gotten rid of that, again, because I think most people are going to their cell phones for that type of device.
Getting rid of that kit, not the controller.
Correct.
It's still available a la carte.
Yep, you can still buy it, it's just they're not packaging it. So we still have the Prestige 2.0, but it is not changing. The new Prestige, it's smaller, it's still high definition, it's available in the 4 colors, and then you can change the screen color, which is kind of cool. I think I got a slide of that somewhere. One of the new things with these Prestiges is that you can start looking at the performance of the equipment. Because we're adding in temperature sensors, we're starting to get delta T information. We can look at the return temperatures, outdoor temperatures, indoor temperatures. We've got a lot of information coming back to this thermostat, and when the technician goes there or there's any problems, you've got a ton of information at your fingertips. Plus, if this is hooked up to the Redlink Internet Gateway, you can get this information online before you go out there. And then it's going to save some of the information based on your settings. So a lot of runtime equipment. And then here is how I'll say the platform of Redlink matches up. So Focus Pro all the way on the right, it's a very basic thermostat. You're 5 and 2. You have to go to the Vision Pro to get 7-day. You're not using any sensors or anything. It's just Focus Pro is just a standard small screen push button wireless compatible thermostat. You go to the Vision Pro, that's your mid-tier. It's going to do most of whatever you need functionally, but you're going to have to go to the Prestige to get the what I'll call the delta T's, all that additional information. It looks a little better. You're getting language options, and I'd say the dealer locator. I don't know if that means a lot to people, but you can put your logo in the thermostat. But all of these will get you to the website via a phone or via the thermostat, however you choose. But that's the way they match up. So kind of a good, better, best. Now, I talked a bit about the Prestige, and what I wanted to do here was look at how the Redlink Prestige IAQ stacks up against the Wi-Fi Prestige, because they look exactly the same. One's Wi-Fi, one is Redlink. When it gets to wiring, the Wi-Fi thermostat is 5-wire. Granted, you can use a wire saver if you need to, but the Prestige Redlink thermostat can be 2-wired, so you're just getting power to that thing. You can also get a few more stages out of the Redlink thermostat. So you go 4 heat, 2 cool, which is nice for certain geothermal applications. The Wi-Fi is 3 heat, 2 cool. As far as the outside of the thermostat, with the Redlink, you're getting 4 colors. With Wi-Fi, you're getting any color you want as long as it's white. After that, there's not a whole lot of difference other than you're using the Wi-Fi router or you're buying a Redlink gateway. And then the Prestige Redlink is giving you all those diagnostics. It's giving you the delta T's and all that stuff. So I think that Redlink is a great solution, mainly because there's a lot of different things you can do with it. But Wi-Fi is a great lower cost option. Here's a quick lineup. We start with Focus Pro, we go into the Vision Pro, and then we get into the Prestige. Either way you're going, it's just, do you want to go Redlink or Wi-Fi? And I'm going to hand it over to Ryan Hoger.
So if I can kind of summarize the stuff we talked about thus far, the Bryant Connects and the Carrier Infinity Touchstat, those are really good when you have pieces of equipment, furnaces and AC and that stuff, that speaks those languages already. That's the best way to interface with those pieces of equipment, because you get a lot of data and does a lot of the setup automatically for you. But obviously everybody doesn't have those furnaces, so we have to have lots of other choices as well. The Ventstar Color Touch is a great entry level as far as internet stats goes. Entry-level stat, gets you the touch screen. It does a great job of being a photo frame screensaver type thing as well. You can do the humidity and dehumidification type controls with that. On the Honeywell side, the Wi-Fi stats are probably what most projects are going to have for a regular house. In my mind, it's very similar to what the Ventstar stuff is doing with the Color Touch. If you have the need for some extra accessories and you want to set up a Honeywell wireless network in your house that can connect your zoning systems, your extra remote temperature sensors, your outdoor wireless sensors, your IAQ products, and you really want to have this whole almost home automation network type thing, then the Redlink's a pretty good choice. And oh, by the way, you still get it all connected to the web on there as well. If you don't give a crap about programming your stat whatsoever, you want your stat just to know what the hell you're doing and where you're at, and it basically follows you and tracks you. That's where the Lyric comes in. I think that's going to be a huge hit when that stat comes out in a week or two. So that guy's going to be really good in that regard. On the screen right now, you see a comparison matrix, and we can send this to anybody who wants it because we know it's a giant eye chart. We don't have the Lyric on here yet, but we will add it to the matrix soon. But it was comparing a lot of the internet stats that were available, and we obviously abbreviated the Honeywell one down to one Wi-Fi model and one Redlink model because there's just way too many of the others on there. But as you can see, looking at some of these, how they compare, and we didn't even really talk about Ecobee or Nest at this point just because there's only so much time to talk about internet stats. But the Nest, as most people know, is pretty popular. A lot of people have heard of it. There was some problems with the Gen 1 systems. I think they got a lot of that cleaned up in Gen 2, and it works a lot better when you connect it to one of our furnaces. But it is pretty limited. It doesn't have a touch screen, which a lot of people like. So it doesn't have that automatic, natural feel for navigation like all the other stats do. It doesn't have the ability to do anything wirelessly like some of the Redlink and that kind of thing. And it's a decent stat, but it doesn't do anything super special. The one thing that it does that it claims is its special claim is the ability to learn your behavior, and it does in fact do that, and the algorithms do in fact work. But it seems like if your thermostat's not in a good location in the house, it doesn't quite do it perfectly. For example, a lot of people have their thermostat in their dining room, the dining room that they never go into. So if you're never in there, it's harder for the thermostat to learn your behavior without you going up to it and touching it. Whereas I think the Lyric's Geo Fencing really kind of solves that problem. And like Greg said, the Lyric is designed to compete directly with the Nest. One, because it's round, and who makes a better round thermostat than a Honeywell, right? But two, because the Geo Fencing is really a better way to learn a homeowner's behavior than to try to track what you do at your house just by how often you touch your stat and stand in front of it. So if we know where your phone is, we probably know where you're at, is kind of the idea there. So a couple other things coming down the pipe pretty soon. I'm hoping by the end of the summer here. We have some additional carrier and brine choices. Right now, like I said, the carrier and brine choice, the only one that's out there is the super high-end choice for communicating systems. But they are introducing quote-unquote regular thermostats, very much like a Ventstar and Honeywell type stat. For 2 heat, 2 cool on a gas system, or 3 heat, 2 cool on a heat pump. Wires like a regular thermostat, has the portal and the apps like everything else we talked about today, humidity sensor, smart recovery, all that kind of stuff. These stats do track energy usage, which is helpful. And the one thing that's going to be cool, and we can't really talk about it too much because we've not personally got to play with it yet, but what it's going to do is it's going to make adjustments to your heating and cooling set points based on your energy consumption data, your comfort preferences that you set, and the weather forecast, which will be something fairly unique to residential systems. We do have systems like that out there in the marketplace now, but they're super niche. They're not something you'd get off the shelf like everything else we talked about today. So once the thermostats can kind of see what the weather forecast is going to be and decide, should I do a little bit of heating and cooling work now because of what's going to happen in a couple hours from now, we'll see if that lends any more interest to how we control these stats. We mentioned if there was time, and we're going to take a couple minutes because we do have a little bit of time to tell you about a couple extra things. We mentioned the wire saver from Honeywell that requires you to have a Honeywell thermostat with a K terminal on it. Obviously, that's great for some of those stats, but if you have other Honeywell stats or you have any regular thermostat from any manufacturer, Honeywell, Ventstar, Carrier, Nest, whatever, and you have a 4-wire existing installation in a building and you need to get 5 wires, so you're trying to add a common wire basically, Ventstar has a product called an add-a-wire, which looks a lot like that wire saver from Honeywell, but it works with any stat. The reason it works with any stat is you add a little piece behind the stat. So on the left, you got your thermostat. You got 4 wires in the wall. On the right, you got your HVAC equipment that has the same 4 wires in the wall. And now you're taking that stat off the wall and you're adding a 5-wire stat. So you continue to use 3 of the wires, R, W, and C, for hot, heat, and common. And then you take that 5th wire and you split it and share it between fan and cooling, G and Y. You put this little tiny diode in the back of the stat. It's got 2 wires in, which wire to fan and cooling, and it's got 1 wire out. That 1 wire out of the back of the diode goes to the wires that are in your wall, runs through the wall, and goes back to the HVAC equipment. Then we got a little box we install over there that splits it back out. It has 5 wires on it, 1 in, which is that same blue wire from the wall, 2 out, which is the heating the cooling and fan wire, and then 2 wires of steel power. So it looks scarier than it is. It's a very inexpensive accessory, but it allows you to get 1 extra wire on your installations. And if you need more than 1, you can use 2 of these kits simultaneously. If you got 6 wires and need 7, you can do that. If you got 6 and you need 8, you can do that. You just can't split hot and you can't split common, but anything else can be pretty much split. I'm not going to go through this, but for commercial systems, we've been doing internet accessible systems since the year 2000. If you got a building automation system and you want to get it web accessible, let us know. We can definitely help you out with that. All the same stuff we just talked about pretty much exists in the building automation world, although obviously you're controlling a lot more than just a call for heating and a call for cooling. You're modulating valves, you're changing speeds of drives, you're staging boiler plants and chiller plants, controlling lighting, all that kind of stuff. You can do a lot of cool things once you put a building automation system in that has web accessibility. So for small commercial systems, an internet stat's probably the way to go. For larger stuff, universities, hospitals, manufacturing building, a large office building, you're probably going to want to get a building automation system in there, and we can help you with that kind of stuff if you want to learn more about it. I'm going to go ahead and look and see if we have any other questions that we still need to answer while we got a few minutes here. David asks if Honeywell Redlink has plans for duplex outlet light switch type controls. I'm assuming that means to control lighting. I don't know the answer to that, if they have plans or not. There's nothing like that that's about to be released, so nothing we've heard of. But I imagine in the back of some of their engineers' minds, controlling lighting is a fairly next logical step, because really there's nothing left to control on the HVAC side. Brian asks about costs. So for one, I'm not going to really talk about costs on here because people are from all over the country and they have different suppliers and stuff like that. So let us know if you need cost help. We'll help you with that. But his question was related to a bypassless zoning system for Vision Pro Redlink. The Honeywell zoning systems do use bypass dampers. The no bypass systems were the early on ones we talked about, which were the Carrier Infinity and Bryant Evolution, because those systems are talking directly to the fan blower and can change the fan blower's speed. The Honeywell system does not do that because they'd have to be able to talk to every single manufacturer of every single blower, which would be very hard for them. So they still use a bypass. Steve asks, what about the observer control? Will it be Wi-Fi? The observer control is the day and night touchscreen thermostat. It is not Wi-Fi currently. I don't know if they have plans to make it Wi-Fi.
They do.
Greg's chiming in that they do have plans for that. Once we have a time frame, Steve, we will reach out to you and anyone else who needs to know. And then Greg's just saying thanks. You're welcome, Greg. That was an easy question. If anybody else has any other questions, let us know, and we'll hang out on here for a couple minutes and try to answer any more that come up. And if not, I will mention that next week, so as you guys probably know, we do webinars pretty much every Monday at noon. We do record these webinars, and this webinar today is recorded, so if you got a coworker that wants to watch it, it'll be posted within the hour here on our website, tecmungo.com. Next Monday, we're not going to do a webinar. It's July 7th. We imagine most of you have a long weekend, and you're going to come back to plenty of chaos at your offices, so we're not expecting people to have time to log in next week, so we're going to skip next week. And then the week after that, so 2 weeks from today on the 14th, our topic is Pool Pack. Some of you may know we recently became the Pool Pack rep for this marketplace here in Northern Illinois. So we're going to talk about the Pool Pack product, so those of you that aren't familiar can become. And Pool Pack is basically mainly a commercial product, although they do have some residential stuff as well. And it's for conditioning, heating, cooling, and dehumidifying indoor pool areas. So if you got projects you work on, universities, high school pools, YMCAs, that kind of thing, we'd love to talk to you about that. And so join us for our webinar in 2 weeks, and we'll get you started with Pool Pack. I don't see anybody typing in any other remaining questions, so we're going to go ahead and shut down. If you do have any other further questions, my contact info and Greg's contact info are on the screen right now, so just reach out to us later, and we'll try to answer your questions individually. We thank you for your time.